revolution. People are having to find new ways to connect, not just as people, but systems and infrastructure and technology like never before. And this is a really wild opportunity for you to go deep dive into exploring your business, your systems, and your processes for automation. And so I asked Stu Hawkins to give a presentation on how you can approach thinking differently about systems and automation. He's the founder of RedArc. He builds automated fundraising systems for some of the biggest charities in the world, like UNICEF, Food Bank, Salvos. And he's going to be talking about how to make sure your systems are working for you, not against you. The importance of creating an interconnected system of kind of killer apps, each which solves a powerful problem. 5 indicators that you can benchmark yourself against to see whether or not you're making the most of these kind of integrated technology systems and apps that are available. And what to do next, even if you're not a techie person. Stu's a legend. I think you're going to get a lot of value from this. But before I hand over to him, let me just give you some context. So you're about to sit in on a session from one of our crisis reinvention team, but let me give you some quick context. When COVID started to seriously impact businesses, we mobilized experts from within the Dent community to be able to help business leaders like yourself navigate the difficult decisions across a variety of topics, including how to access finance and grants, to cash management, to human resource law, to marketing and sales strategies, to cool tools and tech that you can use from home, through to high stakes leadership, health, wellness, stress management, not just for yourself, but for your team, and look, a whole lot more. For the full schedule, with more being added every week, visit dent.global/reinvent, and we hope you find it a useful resource. All right, let's do this.
Thanks, Glenn. And can I say right at the outset, what an incredible initiative this is. It's times like these when you really realize that you're part of a community, part of a tribe that comes together in times of need to help each other out. And that is amazing. There are so many awesome resources in these series, and you really should check them out. And for myself, I'm just honored that, I can be some small part of it. So like Glenn said, my name is Stu and I run a software company called RedArc that develops automated fundraising systems for nonprofits. We help people like UNICEF and the Salvos make more impact by automating, connecting, and extending their systems. And systems is exactly what I want to talk about. Because there's never been a more important time for your systems to be working for you rather than against you. I mean, our lives right now are totally full of important things. They're just like you get up and you do important things. You work through the entire day, and if you're lucky, you finish by like 8 p.m. and everything in between was critical. And so, you don't want to be spending time during that making sure that your systems are still going, because they should be working for you and not taking up your time. So can I suggest to you that at this time, if at no other time, you need to make sure your systems are working, and if they're not, this is the time to reinvent them. You see, we work for a whole range of nonprofits, and from small ones to large ones, and we get a consistent message coming back that they are spending time doing data stuff when they should be talking to people, and their team is spending time getting caught up in like the tiny little stuff when they should be doing their jobs, doing their high value tasks. And small business is no different. Like my business is no different. We're just doing stuff that there is technology now that can do it for you. So here's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to, from our experience working with our customers and from our own company and the experience we've had of automating our company, what I want to do is give you what you need in order to assess whether there's a reinvention that needs to happen in your company, and then give you some tips on how to make that happen. Sound good? Let's get started. Okay, so we're going to be looking at 3 things. First of all, I'm going to give you some context. We're going to talk about how awesome ecosystems of applications are basically what you need in this day and age. And then I'm going to go through 5 signs that may indicate that you need to reinvent your systems in this time of crisis. And then finally, we're going to do some next steps so that you'll know what to do next should you find that you need to reinvent. All right, so let's start with some context. Yes, that is the one ring that will rule them all, because that is how systems used to be. It used to be that you would have one system, and the idea was that that one system would do everything for you. Now, I'm not sure this is quite so much the case in business than it is in the non-profit world. You guys may have moved on a lot sooner than the non-profit world. So I'm not going to dwell on this, but basically that's how it used to be, and it basically didn't work. But cloud computing introduces this whole new idea. There's this, you could then get, like, because cloud applications were affordable and easily available, and they, hopefully might connect together, but we'll get to that later. So you could go out and you can find a whole bunch of applications, not just one, because one is like really, really hard. It was like this all-purpose do everything thing that never really, really existed. So you could go out and get like a whole bunch of little apps that did one thing awesomely well, and you could put them together, a bit like a fantasy football team. Because like a normal football team, you just got your own players, like your players who you've hired, and that's all it is. You can only pick from like your 20 players or however many players it is. But a fantasy football team, you can pick from any player anywhere in the world. You can just put together the best players. And it's a bit like that, because like in the old way where you had one app, you just had that app's features and you could use them or not use them, but that's all you had. But in cloud computing, you can just pick anything you like. So let me give you some examples. And these are just examples. So here we go. Here's you might want to start with a CRM, and you might have one of these CRMs, because there's good CRMs, and then you'd probably get Xero for your accounts, or you might have MYOB or something else, but you'd want a cloud app. And then you want to do some marketing, so you want to have Campaign Monitor or MailChimp or Active Campaign or Autopilot, one of those. And these are all great programs that you could put in your ecosystem. Then you might want to add some landing pages, lead pages. At least was a great way of doing it. I'm sure there's a better way of doing it now, but lead pages, and there's several apps like that. You might want to do some conversational SMS. There's one go for there. Definitely you want to do some project management. There's some great ways you can do that, great apps you can do that. Asana, Monday.com, and then Toggles. You can, like, when you're remote working, you can have Toggle, which will keep track of all your employees' hours, and you can like do awesome things with that. And then you probably want to get in touch with your customers. So Typeform would be good, SurveyMonkey would be good. Quilla, that's an amazing one. It allows you to do presentations, proposals that look like presentations that just make you seem like you're the most awesome company ever, which of course you are. Now let's not forget G Suite. It's got some incredible features that are not always used, and they all connect up together. Google Forms, for example, is a great way, super cheap, super available way of getting information from your customers. And then last but not least, there's Trello, which can be used for all sorts of things, including project management, putting together things. We use it a lot, Dent use it a lot. It's a great tool. So as you can see, that screen is full. And these are just examples, right? You could fill like 10 screens with great apps that do something specific. But you might be in some kind of industry where there's like something very specific you do. So you do want to go and find an app that does that very specific thing. And the idea is that you put all of these together, all right, and you've got this incredible fantasy football team. And if you're clever, right, when you get them together, you can make them work together, and that's what we call an ecosystem. Let me read this out. An ecosystem is a biological community of interacting organisms and their physical environment, plants, animals, and microorganisms working together as a functional unit. And that's why we call them ecosystems, because you get all these apps and you put them together. But sometimes it doesn't work out quite that well. So here's Mickey in Fantasia, and Mickey's got a bit of an early proto app ecosystem going on, because he's got like the magic bucket carrying the water for him. So he's like, this is awesome. I've got an app working for me. It's really good. But then what happens is Mickey adds a few more apps. Mickey is trying to create an app ecosystem, and he puts it all together, but he doesn't really think it through. And this is how it ends up. It ends up with this crazy like magic bucket frenzy, chasing beating him down and soaking him with water. It basically is a big disaster, because what's happened is, instead of building something that's going to help him, he's created a monster because he didn't really think it through. And this is maybe another thing that you could like make all your systems work, right? But they just end. This is Heath Robinson, and Heath Robinson invented machines that were deliberately complex and obtuse. But maybe your systems in your business are accidentally complex and obtuse, and they're just doing a whole bunch of stuff. And it does kind of work. It does. What does it make? It makes the pancake. The pancake gets made at the end, but it's just done in such a complicated way that, is it really helping you? Okay. Let me give you another perspective on this. This is you got to imagine a continuum, right, between vanilla and technicolor. Vanilla is like when you got the one ring, you got one system, you got a set amount of features, and then technicolor is when you've added a whole bunch of systems that do exactly what you want. Now, there's another axis here, which is from serene to manic. Now, serene is like fairly obviously when you're calm and everything's going well and your systems are working and you can get on with your job. And manic is when, well, you're manic, right? Now, what I'm going to suggest is that all of your business is going to fit into one of these quadrants. So let's look at what the quadrants look like. So you got the top one here, which is I'm just giving away. It's a little bit monochromatic. So basically, you got one system, you're calm, but you can't really do that much. All right. So then the next one down, it's like the next quadrant below that. It's like you haven't got many systems, but you're still manic. I have no idea why that would be. That doesn't even make sense. But maybe you're there. I don't know. I can't help you. I'm sorry. But the two segments on the right are, more like where companies are likely to be. So the bottom right-hand corner, this is where you've added a whole bunch of systems, but you're far from serene. In fact, you're going to be a little bit like Kermit here, going crazy. And that's what you feel like, because you've added all this stuff that was meant to help you, but you're just like typing like crazy to make it all work. But some people, they've added all the systems, they've made it all work, and they still manage to end up with this beautiful Australian ecosystem with a kangaroo and logs, and it's all working together, and it's really, really beautiful. And that's where you can end up. And what I'm going to suggest to you, that the difference between Kermit and our kangaroo plankton eating scene at the top is automation, integration, connectivity. Those things turn crazy Kermit into the beautiful Australian outback scene you see at the top. So to help you find out where you might be on that quadrant, what we've done is we put together 5 signs that your organization may be in need of its own connectivity. It used to be revolution. Right now it's a reinvention, because this is the crisis reinvention. You may need to reinvent your systems right now. And these 5 things are going to show you where you are on that quadrant. All right, number 1, double entry, double the work. Now, this, believe it or not, is where you've got 2 applications that you're using in your business, and you go into one and you type some information to that, maybe as a customer, and then you go into the other one and you type the exact same information. Now, every single time I do this presentation, I'm like, we need to drop this slide, because seriously, nobody is doing this anymore. This cannot be happening. It's now 2020. This cannot be happening. Every time I'm like, okay, put your hands up if you're still doing this. And I guarantee there's more than one hand every single time I do this. People still do this. Stop. It's crazy. Don't do it anymore. You are literally doubling the amount of work that you're doing, and there are ways to sort it out. There are bad ways and there are good ways, but just do something, okay? Thank you. All right. Okay, sign number 1, double entry, double the work. Double the insanity. Doesn't say that. Okay. Number 2, export, import, repeat. Now, this was an awesome solution to number 1, the double entry thing, back in like 1980. Because what happened was somebody realized that instead of retyping it, you could export. So you can go into one program, press export, and it produces a file, and you got that file and you moved it somehow to the other system and then import it into the other one. And it's like, it's amazing. You don't have to type that information twice, except then you got to do it again. So then you have to export and you have to import it. And then when you need that information again, you export it and you import it. And say that's like some piece of information that's important and timely, you're going to have to do that every day, which means that's 5 days a week, which is 20 days a month, which is a phenomenal amount of years. That's export, import, repeat, export, import, repeat. You end up looking like these ladies in this cartoon here. It doesn't work. And it was awesome in 1980, but this is not 1980, this is 2020. And there are ways to directly connect your app so that you don't have to go through this whole thing about export, import, repeat. Okay? Export, import, repeat. Don't do it. Okay. All right. Number 3, you're getting really good with Excel. Now, admittedly, this doesn't sound that bad. It's like, you're really good. It's like, you're awesome at Excel. You're just so good. You're like an Excel guru. It's like the best thing ever. Hey, I'm an Excel guru. It's like really, really awesome, right? The thing is, right, what is your job title? Now, if your job title is Excel guru, then you are the best Excel guru. You are exactly doing your job. You're awesome. You should get a pay rise. All right. However, if your job title is it's the founder, or you're the CTO, or you're the operations manager, or the marketing, or the sales manager, or basically any kind of like team leading person that doesn't have the word Excel in, then by being really, really good at Excel, you've basically you're not doing a job, because that's not your job. Your job is to do the thing that you're hired to do, which is like sales or marketing or leading or operating or whatever it is you're meant to be doing. That's what you're meant to be doing, not Excel. And the reason you probably got really good at Excel is because you're doing export, import, repeat. Because actually that practice doesn't work, because somehow in between the two, it's like, oh, that doesn't quite fit. So you like Google a whole bunch of like awesome Excel hacks so you can like format this and format the other and do this like this VLOOKUP and do whatever. And then somehow it's like, but then you have to do that tomorrow, and you have to do that tomorrow. Oh, yes. And you got this other thing as well. And then you eventually, you end up making an Excel list of all the Excel tricks you have to do in order to get Excel spreadsheet A and spreadsheet B. Why? It's okay. So if you're good at Excel, all right, just put your hand up and just think through how you got there, and then think, maybe I need to do this differently. All right, number 3, you're getting really good with Excel. All right, number 4, you're sure that information is in there somewhere. And, Wally is in there somewhere. All right, but you can't see him. And if if you have like a customer CRM and you also have some email marketing and that's got some stuff in, but you've also got some sales, and you've basically got all these systems. And then when somebody says, can you tell me how much blah 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 is, and you're like, I don't know, that's over here, and then something's over here, and you just don't know, right? And then you just be like, oh, I'll just get on. And then you see you're making decisions without all the information. Now, if you could have connected that information together somehow, you could have maybe got it all together and been like, oh, well, this is I need to do this. So if you're finding you can't find information, but that somewhere in your organization it exists, you definitely have a connectivity issue. All right, and then number 5 is my favorite. Here we go. Number 5 is you're using the F word a lot. Now, I can guess what word maybe Gordon Ramsay is using there, all right? But that's not the F word I'm talking about. I mean, another F word I could be talking about is frustration, all right? But not even that. The word that I'm talking about here, the F word I'm talking about here is file. Oh, does somebody send me the file? Have you got the file? Yeah. Oh, that file got lost. Oh, the file's on the FTP. Oh, the email dropped that file. Oh, was that? People talking about files, it just indicates you've got a problem, because files were invented in the 1970s. And back in the 1970s, people wore flares and really, really bad clothes that were cool then, but aren't cool now. And files were a bit like that. They were very, very cool when they were invented in the 1970s, right? But this is not the 1970s. There's API technology. There's platforms that can do this for you. There's all sorts of stuff that's now happening that you shouldn't be having big conversations about. Oh, where's the file? Because, well, you shouldn't be using a file. Okay? So if you talk about files, that's number 5. That's number 5. And it may be frustrating you, and you may actually be using the F word because, heck, it can be frustrating. All right. So, did anybody see themselves in any of those slides? Did anyone see themselves in more than one of those slides? Hopefully that's going to give you an idea that maybe there's areas that you can improve, areas that you can connect, that you can then make your systems, you can reinvent your systems and make them more effective. What's next? Okay. So here's what you do. If you realize that you can do something, I'm going to suggest there's 3 things that you can do. Number 1, pick your team. And this goes back to the whole app ecosystem thing. Number 2 is spot the bottlenecks. So if you've put your apps together, your team together, right, you just got to see like where it's working and where it's not working. Because I'll get to that in a sec. Number 3, connect the dots. Once you've figured out where the bottlenecks are, connect it together and make an actual ecosystem, not a monster. All right, let's go with number 1 first, pick your team. This is fairly obvious. This slide, which I showed you earlier, is just a very, very small selection of things you can use. So you just got to get on Google. You got to be like, I want to do this. You just be convinced that there's an app that does it for you. Ask some people who are doing similar things. Go, what do you use best for things? What's the best? And you'll end up with like, 4 or 5, don't go crazy, apps that do what you need to do. And they're probably going to cost you, a sensible amount of money, and they're going to really, really, really help you. Okay. So first of all, number 1, pick your team, find the apps that do what you need to do for your business. Okay. Number 2 is find the bottlenecks. Now, less is more. You can just about read that because there's kind of bits missing. That's kind of the joke, I think. It's very artistic. But it's true, because what happens is we do a lot of integration and people will come to us and say, can you integrate these 2 systems? And we're like, actually worse than that. Some people come to us and say, can you tell us how integration will help us? And I'm like, well, let's sit down and talk about that. Maybe we want to have turn that conversation around the other way, because the real question they should be asking is, what problems do you have? Because if you bought 5 apps and you haven't got any problems, then don't integrate anything. Don't automate anything. It's all working fine. Everybody's doing great. Okay. So the first thing you want to do is figure out, where are their problems? Where am I spending time doing something where it's not actually my job? Where is information getting somewhere too late? Where is information not getting there anywhere at all because it was too hard to get there? Where are humans involved in the chain where they're not helping in the chain? So they can forget stuff. They can do it twice. They can forget to do the invoice. They could get the invoice wrong because, there's whole loads of things. So you just got to, the next step, number 2, once you've picked your 5 apps, number 1, number 2 is figure out what's working and what's not working, and less is more. Don't automate a bunch of stuff just for fun. We don't do it, and we're an integration company. All right. And then the third one is, how do you actually connect the dots? Like, how do you, and this is going to be a very, very kind of overview of this, but this should really help you. First of all, a lot of applications now have built-in integrations to other applications. So like Salesforce will integrate to all sorts of things. You can integrate stuff into Xero, a lot of things. And there's lots of things that are already built in, and those are the ones you should use first. You might find that your 2 applications already integrate with each other. You've just never turned it on. And they're free. And they work because they've been thoroughly tested, and you haven't got to go to a third person to make it happen. So the first thing you should look for is a built-in integration. Just I don't know, Google integrations. Go in the help menu. There's normally an integration there. That's the first thing to do. Okay, number 2, integration platforms. Now these are separate pieces of software. I'm probably telling you all things that you already know, but just in case, these are separate pieces of software, and all they do is connect things together. And they've become very popular in the last few years. They're very, very affordable. They're designed to be easy to use, so that business users, you don't need to get a development team unless you've got MuleSoft, which is an integration platform. But we're not going to talk about, we're talking about stuff here that you guys can use. Okay. So integration platforms like Zapier. Oh, now we're coming back. Zapier, Power Automate, which is Microsoft's one. That's new, and that's we're beginning to use that a lot now. And then our personal favorite, which is Integromat. It does a little more than Zapier. It does it at a lower price. It's much better when you're moving a lot of things around. It's a little bit more technical to use. Still a little niche. So I'm going to recommend, if you're just doing this starting out, use Zapier or Power Automate. And then finally, if you're stuck, what you can do is you can get a specialist integration company in, and they will, first of all, talk to you about what is a good idea to connect. Like how is a good idea to connect? Because when people come to us, they want to just like, I want everything to connect to everything else. I want everything to go in both directions. And we're like, well, that's going to cost you thousands of dollars. Do you really want to do that? Like, oh, I didn't realize that. So what then happens is we have a discussion about what would actually be helpful to connect, and then can we limit the information that's going across? Can we make this more helpful? And then you can generally get down to like a sensible design for how you're going to connect things together, and then it's much more affordable, and that's a good way to go. But really, you look for the built-in integration first, and look for the see if you can do it yourself with Zapier or Power Automate, and just maybe someone who could help you. Those are probably the best two options, unless you're doing like a major integration that is business critical. Okay, let me give you. Let me give you some examples from the things we have done. This first one is Mondial Telephone Fundraising, which is a charity call center we've worked with for a very long time. Now, their basic policy is when people leave, they look and see whether their jobs can be automated. And I think nearly every time somebody's left, that role has not been recreated. It's been replaced with technology. So they're very, very on the front foot in terms of employing technology to do things that really, that job that left had probably somebody been doing it for several years. It was a great, when it started, but technology had advanced and it wasn't needed anymore. So when we started working with them, I'm just going to show you what they had. Now, they're a call center, so they had a calling system. Now that seems really simple, but what happened was lots of campaigns came in. So the charities they work for would send them Excel spreadsheets with all the data in, and then they would send them back Excel spreadsheets. Now, both of which could basically be wrong and were a lot of the time. And then, of course, they needed to send invoices. Now, how do they do that? They typed the information. So they took the information, they looked at the information in the calling system, and then they typed it into their accounts package. Zero information took somebody like a day. Actually, it did take them a day. So then, of course, they got payroll. Now, people need to get paid. So how do they do that? Well, they typed a whole other bunch of information that came out of the call system, and then they needed timesheets, which were of course done with paper and pen, which then also got sent to this poor person who's doing the payroll, and then they had to book the shifts. So the fundraiser had to say when they're coming in, and of course that was done on an Excel spreadsheet. And sales, paper and pencil. That was it. No system, no nothing. Campaign started, nobody knew. Campaign started when people didn't know the whole time. It was a bit of a mess. And you see all of these lines here. Each one of those lines is a person. So there was a person doing all those things. And it wasn't an awesome job. Like, processing Excel files all day long is not awesome fun. And it was costing the company a lot of money. So over a period of years, what we did was change it to this. So it's still got the calling system. And then of course we integrated Xero. So then all the invoicing was done in 1 hour. That is the beauty of, and you could do the same thing. This is a charity call center, but if you've got anything where you're recording stuff and you integrate that to your invoicing system, suddenly something that took you all day and was very frustrating became a no-brainer. All right. Then the payroll system was then linked into Xero. It was Xero, and it was all linked into the calling system, so that all just worked anyway. Then we set up a web form so that fundraisers could add their own hours. So the supervisor didn't have to go in and collect pieces of paper and then write them all into a spreadsheet and then put them all in. That all of that was gone. That saved hours and hours and hours. Plus, the fundraisers were able to do it from home. It was much better. And then all that data coming from charities. So that's our system right there. That's our Red Arc telemarketing system that sits in between the call center and the charity, and all the data just moves automatically. There are no files in this system. If it's set up like that, the data goes one way and goes back, and stuff doesn't get lost. It's awesome. And then, then just for fun, we linked it up to their recruitment systems. As soon as somebody got recruited, when they hired, that all got automatically set up in Youre and automatically set up on all the calling systems. And that's like half a day's work each time they hired someone, which is quite a lot back then, because long story. And then just for funsies, just recently we added HubSpot for their CRM, which means they got a sales process. And at the end of the sales process, when a project goes live, it gets automatically set up in the calling system. So suddenly everybody had visibility and control. So you can see all those lines there are not people; those lines are automation, and it just completely revolutionized their business. And let me show you some of the things it did. There were literally 4 fewer full-time staff. Now these, they didn't, just to make it clear, they didn't sack a bunch of people. These were people who left and weren't replaced, or some of them went on to doing more interesting jobs. But 4 less staff. Now you can imagine that's a big budget for the automation. Customers got their results back in time, which is always a good thing. There were no more errors. People used to mess things up the whole flipping time. People would send duplicate files back, so they would double up in the charity CRM, or people would get called at the wrong time. It was just a disaster. Invoicing, as I told you, went from 1 day to 1 hour. The fundraisers were to self-manage, which meant there was a lot less faffing around with the supervisors, their team leaders, and the sales and the operation team were finally connected. So that's what can happen if you invest in a whole bunch of integration. But that's like industrial scale integration. You know what I mean? That's like key to their business. My second example, I just want to do something that's more relevant to a business a bit more like yours. So I thought I'd show you what our business does, because ours is a much smaller business and we still use a lot of integration, but we use it in a very different way, because despite the fact we're a software company, we don't tend to invest a whole bunch in our internal systems in terms of writing code for ourselves. We generally use off-the-shelf integration platforms. I set a lot of it up, and I'm not one of the coders. It's just kind of a little bit of a mission for me. I just kind of like this kind of guerrilla DIY integration, and we just integrate these little things to just make our life so much easier. So this might be more the kind of thing that you guys would need. So this is our CRM HubSpot. So that's our sales pipeline. As soon as something deal goes through, that gets automatically pushed through to our project management system, which is Asana, and that's completely automated now. And then what happens at the same time, it pushes a notification to our awesome bookkeeper, Tammy. Now, you will notice that Tammy is not a system and she is not an application. She's a real life person, all right? Because the way that our invoicing work is quite complicated, and it just wouldn't have made sense to try and automate it and do all the complicated rules that it just wouldn't have worked. So instead, we automatically notify her, which means she gets all the information. She always gets notified, so somebody can't forget to tell her that we've got a project. And then she sets it up in Youre. That's a person, because you need it's like use people for what they're good at, who've got brains, and use automation for what it's good at. All right, now Jira is the same. So our actual development is done in Jira. It's not done in Asana, because it's got a whole bunch of development stuff that goes on, and our development team lead sets it up. Again, that wouldn't make sense to automate that. But now here's the bit I really like. So we've got Youre, which has got all our financial information. We've got HubSpot that's got all of our sales information. We've got Youre that's got all the development metrics. So the 3 of those give us all the metrics that we use to measure how our business is doing day by day. Now, you may have heard of this concept because you're in Dent of the SAND dashboard. Now, SAND dashboard is an awesome idea that shows you week by week how the business is doing. It's just literally you get reds and greens. Are you good? If you got greens, you're good. If you got reds, you got something you need to sort out. So That's quite often people set that up in Trello, and initially we set ours up in Trello, but it just needed someone to go in every week and do it, which isn't a big deal, but it was kind of something we didn't want to do. So we realized we had all this data, and we realized we were an integration company. So what we did, we automated the whole thing. So now it pushes through the Google Data Studio, and we've got this automated sand dashboard. And it wasn't that hard. It's a little more complicated than the other ones, but if you do things like that, then suddenly your systems start winning. I can go in now and I can be like, how are we doing? And I can find out without having to ask anyone. They don't have to prepare the data. They don't have to do a report for me. I can just go in and look, and it's automatic. It all happens. Now that's all done with Integromat and Zapier. Integromat was the slightly more complicated bit around the Data Studio, and all the rest is Zapier. I personally set a lot of this up. So I hope you can see how much that would have helped us, because basically it took a whole bunch of remembering and emails and maybe even paper notes, and it turned it into things that just happened. And what you need right now is things that just happen, because there's so much else to do that's important. All right. I want to end up with a few FAQs. And now these are things that we hear from our customers a lot, and I thought the answers that we normally give them would be helpful to you. So here we go. Number one, is integration expensive? And this is a question we get a lot because it seems to be a reason that people don't do it. Now the answer is no. Well, the answer is it doesn't have to be, because if you're using a built-in integration, that's going to be free, right? If you're using Zapier or if you're using Microsoft Power Automate, those are inexpensive solutions. You can get below $50 a month. You can even get a free solution, which will help you get started and experiment to see if this is something you want to do. So the simple answer is no. Okay, number two. Do I need to get someone in to do this? Well, no. Again, because the tools I just described, the built-in integrations and Zapier and Power Automate, they're all designed, they're all built so that users, people like you, but business owners can use them. They're not meant for developers. There's other tools that developers use. So yes, you can get someone in, and sometimes if it's like a key process for your particular company, then it's probably a good idea. But if you're just doing things like I just described in our company, and you're just connecting things up together and triggering things and things happen over here, then no, these tools are designed for you. Go use them. Okay, number three. Why would I spend money on technology during a crisis? Well, there's a simple reason for that. Because during a crisis, you haven't got time to faff around with Excel. Let the technology do the work for you. Okay, number four. How would it help my remote team work better? Now, the whole thing about remote teams is, as you're probably already discovering, that there's a lot of communication that needs to happen, and there's a lot of information that isn't quite as easily available as if you're in the same room. Now, automation can really, really help with that, because you can trigger stuff to go to people automatically. You can make sure that it contains all of the information that they're going to need. And there's going to be some stuff, like we just said, that will just happen, which then means they don't have to do it, which means they've got more time as well. So yes, definitely automation can help your remote team work more efficiently and more effectively. All right, how do I know where to start? I kind of think we already covered this. What you need to do. Number one, you need to pick your team, pick your applications. Number two, you need to find out the bottlenecks. Don't just fix things for the heck of it. Find the bottlenecks. And number three, pick one of those bottlenecks and just make a start. It's as easy as that. Just make a start. You really haven't got anything to lose. Number six, is it difficult? Well, the answer to that is keep it simple. It could be difficult, but it doesn't have to be. So keep it simple and you'll be good to go. Number seven, what if it doesn't work? And that's a valid question. It's like, what if I've invested all of this time and money into setting up an integration system and it really didn't help me? Well, again, there's a simple answer to that. Don't invest a whole load of time and money into it. Start with something that you know that is going to make a big impact, something that's small, something that's easy to solve. Use one of the tools I described at the top that don't cost you a lot of money and don't take a lot of time to set up. And you use the concept of MVP, right? In this context, that's minimum viable product. So just make the smallest version that you can of it and see if it works. And then if it doesn't work, you can do it again a little bit different. You haven't really lost a huge amount of time or money. And what you stand to gain by not having to do that big thing that's maybe like 80% of your problem is huge. So yeah, if it doesn't work, that's not awesome. On the other hand, if you just make sure you just start where it's important, it's not going to be a problem and you've got so much to win. Right, that's it pretty much. I just got some closing thoughts and we're done. So here they are. If your systems are looking a little monochrome because you haven't got enough going on, then get them to launch, get them to take off, get something happening. On the other hand, if you're looking like Kermit and everything is going crazy, then add some automation and make it into an ecosystem, not a problem. Okay, my final thought, and I found this on the Microsoft site. Take care of what's important, automate the rest, which pretty much sums up all I want to say today. We're here to help if you need us. There's a URL with a whole bunch of resources on there, but really it's now over to you. Go reinvent your systems because this is the time to do it. This crisis will be gone and we want all of you to come out the other side even stronger than you went in. Thanks for listening. You guys are awesome.
For more expert talks, just visit dent.global/reinvent because we believe that the decisions that you make now matter more than ever. We started Dent 10 years ago in the middle of the GFC in London, and we shared the key person of influence methodology as a tool to be able to help businesses thrive despite the chaos. Today, it's a best-selling book, and over 3,000 businesses use the methodology like an operating system for driving performance. And we've learned that regardless of economic conditions, that your primary focus as a founder should be showing up as the go-to brand, the key person of influence in your industry. More important than systems or social media, more important than Facebook videos or launching a website, the goal of showing up as the key person of influence in your industry should be the organizing force. It should be the primary objective that helps align all your other decision making. Because as your influence and reach expands, it becomes easier and cheaper to attract clients, team, media, even investors. When times are tough, it's the key people of influence that become even more valuable and even more in demand. And if you've been in business for a while, you're probably a lot closer than you think. So every week that this COVID-19 thing continues, I'm going to be hosting a weekly talk to be able to help business leaders like yourself recalibrate their focus so they can make the most of the times that we're in. If you're interested in jumping on a Zoom and saying hi with me, you can find the link to register for my sessions as well as all of the crisis response team sessions at dent.global/reinvent. If you found this useful, let us know. My name's Glenn Carlson, and please be brave, have fun. Let's go make a dent in the universe.